This week on Vaticano, Pope Francis baptizes 32 babies, reminding their parents of the importance of passing on their faith. He also prepares to create 19 new cardinals from around the world, and he meets with 180 representatives from nations for his State of the World address. The Legionaries of Christ hold meetings as they seek to renew their constitutions, and we visit the Vatican's parish of St. Anne. And finally, we take a peek into the world of these acrobats and jugglers who recently visited the Pope, and we discover a live nativity scene. All this coming up in a few moments.
On January the 12th, the Pope announced the names of the new cardinals to be created this February. They represent the peripheries of which Pope Francis speaks so often.
Come è stato già annunziato, il prossimo 22 febbraio.
As it has already been announced, on the 22nd of February, the Feast of the Chair of St. Peter, I will have the joy of holding a consistory, during which I will appoint 16 new cardinals, which, from 12 countries from all over the world, represent the profound relationship between the Church of Rome and the other churches around the world. The next day, I will preside at a solemn concelebration with the new cardinals, while on the 20th and 21st of February, I will hold a consistory with the cardinals to reflect on the theme of the family.
Concistoro con tutti I cardinali per riflettere sul tema della famiglia.
On the 22nd of February, Pope Francis will thus celebrate his first cardinal-creating consistory, during which he will appoint a total of 19 new cardinals. The members of the College of Cardinals will then raise from 199 to 218, of which 123 are under the age of 80 and thus eligible to choose a new pope. Of the 19 new cardinals, 8 are European. They include the Vatican Secretary of State, Archbishop Pietro Parolin, and the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, Archbishop Gerhard Müller. They also include 7 from North, Central, and South America, 2 Africans, and 2 Asians. With this consistory, the Pope is putting his touch on the future of the Church, which calls Catholics to discover the faith in the world's peripheries. Pope Francis baptized 32 babies in the Sistine Chapel on the feast day of the Lord's baptism, the 12th of January. During his improvised homily, he invited parents and godparents to transmit with joy the treasure of the faith. He called it the most beautiful inheritance that they will ever leave their children.
Questi bambini sono l'anello di una catena. Voi genitori avete il bambino e la bambina.
These children are a link in a chain. You parents have the baby girl or baby boy that needs to be baptized, but in a few years, it will be they who will have a child or a grandchild that needs to be baptized. The chain of faith is like this. What does this mean? I would only like to tell you this. You are the ones who transmit the faith, the transmitters. You have the duty to pass on the faith to these children. It's the most beautiful inheritance that you leave to them, the faith, only this. Take home with you today this thought. We have to be transmitters of the faith. Think about this. Think always about how you are to transmit the faith to children. Today the chorus sings, but the most beautiful choir is this one, the one of children who make noise. Some cry because they are not comfortable or because they are hungry. If they are hungry, moms, give them something to eat. Keep calm, because they are the protagonists here. And now with this awareness of being transmitters of the faith, let us continue the ceremony of baptism.
Adesso, con questa consapevolezza di essere trasmissori della fede, continuiamo la cerimonia del battesimo.
This was the first time that Pope Francis publicly celebrated the sacrament of baptism since the start of his pontificate. Later that same day, Pope Francis met with thousands of people at St. Peter's Square to pray the Angelus. There he made a personal confession to them.
Stamattina
This morning, I baptized 32 infants. I thank the Lord with you for these creatures of new life. I like to baptize children. I love it. Every child that is born is a gift of joy and hope. And every child who is baptized is a miracle of faith and a feast day for the family of God.
È una festa per la famiglia di Dio.
The pontiff also recalled how Jesus showed solidarity with the people when he was baptized by St. John the Baptist.
Condividere è il vero modo di amare.
To share with another is the true way of loving. Jesus does not disassociate himself from us, but rather considers us to be his brothers and sisters, and shares himself with us. And thus, he makes us, together with him, children of God the Father. This is the revelation and the source of true love. And this is the great time of mercy. Doesn't it seem to you that in our time we are in need of an increase in fraternal sharing and love? Don't you think that we are all in need of an increase in charity? Not the kind of charity that is content with a little extra help, that does not really require true involvement, that does not require some risk, but rather the kind of charity that shares with another, that truly addresses the discomfort and the suffering of a brother or sister. Life takes on new flavor when we let ourselves be flooded with the love of God.
Quale sapore acquista la vita quando si lascia inondare dall'amore di Dio.
Following in the tradition, Pope Francis met with the diplomatic corps accredited to the Holy See at the start of the year. During the encounter, the pontiff wished them a year full of blessings and peace. He also took the opportunity to share a few reflections on human problems currently affecting the world. His first thoughts went to the human family, the community of peace.
Fraternity is generally first learned within the family. For the family, by its vocation, is meant to spread its love to the world around it, and to contribute to the growth of that spirit of service and sharing which builds peace. This is the message of the crib, where we see the Holy Family, not alone and isolated from the world, but surrounded by shepherds and the Magi. That is, by an open community in which there is room for everyone, poor and rich alike, those near and those afar. In this way, we can appreciate the insistence of my beloved predecessor, Benedict XVI, that the language of the family is a language of peace. Sadly, this is often not the case, as the number of broken and troubled families is on the rise, not simply because of the weakening sense of belonging so typical of today's world, but also because of the adverse conditions in which many families are forced to live, even to the point where they lack basic means of subsistence. There is a need for suitable policies aimed at supporting, assisting, and strengthening the family.
He also highlighted the importance of diplomatic work, a good path to peace.
What is needed is courage to go beyond the surface of the conflict and to consider others in their deepest dignity, so that unity will prevail over conflict, and it will be possible to build communion amid disagreement.
For the Pope, denying people their human dignity in any shape or form is among the main threats towards peace.
Non possono lasciarci indifferenti I volti di quanto soffrono.
We cannot be indifferent to those suffering from hunger, especially children. When we think of how much food is wasted every day in many parts of the world, immersed in what I have often termed the throwaway culture. Unfortunately, what is thrown away is not only food and dispensable objects, but often human beings themselves, who are discarded as unnecessary. For example, it is frightful even to think that there are children, victims of abortion, who will never see the light of day. Children being used as soldiers, abused and killed in armed conflicts, and children being bought and sold in that terrible form of modern slavery, which is human trafficking, which is a crime against humanity. Pope Paul VI noted that peace is not simply the absence of warfare based on a precarious balance of power. It is fashioned by efforts directed day after day towards the establishment of an order willed by God, with a more perfect justice among men and women. This is the spirit which guides the Church's activity throughout the world, carried out by priests, missionaries, and lay faithful, who with great dedication give freely of themselves, not least in a variety of educational, healthcare, and social welfare institutions, in service to the poor, the sick, orphans, and all those in need of help and comfort. On the basis of this loving attentiveness, the Church cooperates with all institutions concerned for the good of individuals and communities.
Coopera con tutte le istituzioni che hanno a cuore tanto il bene dei singoli quanto quello comune.
Currently, the Holy See has bilateral diplomatic relations with 180 states. The last country to establish relations with the Holy See was the Republic of South Sudan last February.
Stay with us. After the break, we visit the parish of the Vatican, and the Legionaries see a fresh start. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
The Legionaries of Christ have started the new year with a decisive event that will mark the future of the congregation. After 3 years of consultations under the guidance of Cardinal Velasio de Paulis, they began their general chapter in Rome on the 8th of January. The chapter, or the series of meetings, could last until the end of February. They're being divided into 3 very different stages: an examination of conscience on the past, the appointment of new superiors, and the revision of their constitutions that will have to be approved by the Pope. The general chapter marks a path of renewal and purification, which began in 2010 after financial and sexual scandals linked to its founder, the Mexican priest Marcial Maciel de Gollado. It now includes 4 bishops, over 900 priests, and around 3,000 seminarians around the world. It also includes 70,000 members of Regnum Christi, the congregation's secular branch.
Along the walls that mark the border between the Vatican State and Italy, there is a small church dedicated to St. Anne. It was built in the late 1500s for the Confraternity of the Grooms, which had as their patron saint Anne, the mother of the Virgin Mary. In 1929, the church was entrusted to the Augustinians.
In Vaticano c'è una sola parrocchia.
In the Vatican, there's only one parish church, which is this one, the parish of St. Anne, which is the papal parish that was founded in 1929 at the end of the Lateran Pacts. So this is the parish of the Holy Father. All of this belongs to the Vatican City, except for St. Peter's Basilica. It is the parish of the Holy Father because it is the parish where the Apostolic Palace is located, where the Pope lived until Benedict XVI. It's also the parish of the St. Martha House, where Pope Francis lives. All popes have come here in the first days of their papacies. After 4 days, Pope Francis came to greet us. He came to celebrate his first Mass, and for us it was an immense surprise. We thought he would come after some time, after the facade of the church had been finished, which is now being restored. The Pope decided to come suddenly to meet the parish priest with the faithful of the parish. He met all of us, from catechists to children studying the catechism, to families, to parish groups, and it was a great joy for us because he brought among us a huge, warm hug, which was like an announcement that the Lord never gets tired of being a Father who forgives.
Caloroso abbraccio che è stato l'annuncio che il Signore non si stanca mai di essere un Padre che perdona. Il nostro cammino in questi ultimi giorni.
From that morning, I've met the Pope around 10 or 12 times to ask and organize, and all of those times, he asked me to pray for him. Pray for me. Father, pray for me. Dedicate your prayer to me because I'm in so much need of it. So it's a very important moment. I heard the yearning of the Pope that truly asked with his whole heart not to be left alone. And I promised it to him, and this promise has been extended to my whole parish, that I will never leave him alone, but I will always accompany him.
Io devo dire con tutto l'entusiasmo di parroco.
I have to say with all my enthusiasm as parish priest that since Pope Francis visited us and began his Petrine ministry, the parish of St. Anne's has doubled the numbers of confessions and participants in the Holy Mass. The number of people has increased and they constantly ask where the Pope is and if they can meet him.
Dove si trova il Papa, se si può incontrare il Santo Padre.
The expectations of the parishioners of St. Anne's could be satisfied at the end of the restoration of the church, scheduled for April of this year.
Io me lo auguro che il Papa possa.
I hope that the Pope can find some time to come here and hug again those faithful that await him with joy, because we're at the border, close to Italy, whereby all people come and wait for this moment. They always ask, when is the Holy Father coming? When can we meet the Holy Father Francis?
Santo Padre Francesco.
In his weekly general audience, Pope Francis asked thousands of pilgrims to transmit their faith to others. In his catechesis at St. Peter's Square, just as his last one, he continued to reflect on baptism. He also affirmed that living one's faith in community is not an ornament, but something essential for Christian life.
Queridos hermanos y hermanas, en la catequesis de hoy continúo la.
Dear brothers and sisters, in today's catechesis, I continue to reflect on baptism. Today, I focus myself on this aspect. Baptism makes us members of Christ and a member of God's people. The Second Vatican Council expressed this truth, insisting that this sacrament incorporates us with God's people. It makes us members of one people, a people which walks throughout history. Grace is transmitted through the baptismal font, and the people of God walks in time, disseminating God's blessing. Each one of us becomes a missionary disciple. On the one hand, we never stop being disciples, learning, receiving. On the other hand, we are called to the mission, to share what we have received, what we live, the experience of love, of faith in the Trinity. We are called to transmit the faith. No one is saved alone, and we are all called, despite our limitations, to proclaim to others the grace received in baptism. We are one community, and living together our faith is not an ornament, but rather is something essential for Christian life, for testimony, and for evangelization.
During the following weeks, the Pontiff will continue his catechesis on the significance and importance of the different sacraments. Stay with us. After the break, we'll speak to circus artists who performed for Pope Francis. And we also meet the characters of a live nativity scene. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano. Acrobats, jugglers, and horse trainers performed for Pope Francis in his general audience on the 8th of January. Based in Rome, they're called the Golden Circus Festival, and this is their 30th year. To perform for the Pope was a realization of a dream for many of them.
I was really nervous about that. No, it was great. I think I'm glad that I was there and I was working for him because not anyone can do this. I'm happy that that I can do this.
Siamo stati chiamati dal Santo Padre per esibirci davanti a lui.
We were called by Pope Francis to perform in front of him. For me, it was a joy to both take my pony in front of the Pope, but also I was very moved hearing his words when he said, "You artists, you circus artists, give joy and serenity to the world, and the world is in need of joy and serenity." In that moment, I felt proud of being a circus artist, and I will continue to be proud.
The circus turned this Brazilian juggler's life around.
Yo inicié a través de un proyecto social de los gobiernos para sacar el
I
niño.
started off in Brazil as part of a social initiative to get children off of the streets and give them an activity. There I entered a circus school, and there I learned juggling techniques and circus things. Then my bigger school was the street, because I worked a lot on the street and learned a lot there. Then I continued in small circuses and traveling as a backpacker, doing my acts on the streets of Argentina and Chile. A circus then saw me and hired me, and with them I kept traveling around America, and now here in Europe.
Me contrató y ahí seguí viajando toda América y ahora acá en Europa.
From the streets and Little Hope to the square and the Pope.
Estaba confundido acá, pensando en el frío,
I was
pensando.
very confused. I just kept on juggling. I couldn't let anything fall. But there are falls, and there's no problem. We keep going. Because in life, we always fall, and we just keep going. So I just gave my heart, as I always do to the public. The Pope was the public for me, very important. But for me, he's no different from a child or for anyone else who comes to watch me. To be there, the art of the circus, for me, it was always a street art, performing even at traffic lights. I was always at the street, and now I was in front of the Pope, and he was giving me his attention. He was looking at me, showing to the world that the circus has a space and should be respected, that the circus is an art that can change lives. It's an art of love, an art of sharing, an art that goes beyond our hearts for a message of peace, joy, and harmony between families, artists, and the whole society. I think it was a very important moment for the circus to show its magic, its respect, its space, and to get people closer to share more. It was marvelous. It was magical.
No sé, fue maravilloso, fue mágico.
There are 3 important circus festivals in Europe, one in Rome, one in Paris, and the biggest in Monte Carlo, Monaco. The family of Rome's circus director, Liana Orfei, has been 270 years in the business, and for her, this is the 5th pope she has met.
The performance for the Holy Father has been a great thrill. I have personally met 5 popes, from Pope John, Paul VI, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, and Pope Francis. When this pope received us in St. Peter's, it was so great and important that I felt I had wings and I was flying and flying in paradise.
On Epiphany, Pope Francis went to the Church of St. Alfonso's Liguori to visit its live nativity. The characters have been volunteering for 2 months to play the people involved in the birth of Jesus. And on January 12, the nativity was again on display. We asked them what it was like to meet the Pope.
It has been very exciting to see someone so important among us. We would never have thought this would happen. He has come to us, and it has been a marvelous surprise.
When the
Pope arrived, we were very agitated. We only knew that he would arrive 2 days earlier, so we had to adjust everything very quickly. It was a beautiful surprise. We're very happy that the Pope came here to see our nativity. We did a lot of work to get everything in order. They were very kind to come here and give us a hand. We're happy that the Pope came here. We would like to thank him a lot. When he arrived, we were surprised that the first thing he did was to come and see us personally. We are the characters of the Nativity. We thought that maybe he would first greet the children or the disabled, but instead he came suddenly to us. It was a great surprise.
che hanno dei problemi, però invece è venuto subito da noi, è stata una grande sorpresa.
Benissimo, benissimo.
It felt so good to meet the Pope. I'm happy, satisfied. It's been a confirmation of the work we are doing and also a confirmation of our faith.
Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for the Christian fervor that you have. Christmas ends, and then the new year starts. But Jesus always stays with us. Do you believe this?
Una visita bellissima, inaspettata.
It was a very beautiful visit and unexpected because the Pope called us just 2 days prior, saying he would come to visit our live nativity scene. We started working on it on the feast of St. Francis, the 4th of October. Then we asked the Holy Father in a letter if he could come and meet us, and he said yes. We were happy to welcome him, and he was satisfied. He told us he spent a nice afternoon with us, that it did him a lot of good.
Gli ha fatto tanto bene.
For us, this visit has been the most beautiful gift and the most beautiful recognition for everybody's hard work. This nativity means a lot for all of us, so the Lord has repaid us, and it's the greatest gift He could give us.
During his visit, one of the lambs was placed on the shoulders of Pope Francis. It was a gesture which symbolized the care of Jesus for his people.
We had a climate of serenity in a family. I am moved very easily, but instead, on that day, I remained very calm. Pope Francis arrived. He came close. He greeted me, and I asked him if I could place the lamb on his shoulders, like the Good Shepherd. He looked at me and said, "Let's try, as long as it doesn't get scared." I said, No. I placed it on his shoulders. I was a little hesitant. Then we took it off his shoulders, and he said, "Let me check if he has gotten scared."
Father Criscuoli said that it's been agreed that this lamb, touched by Pope Francis himself, will never be killed.